Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Out Universe. I'm so glad you guys are back for another episode. Today, I have a very special guest. She's one of my close friends. I would consider you a close friend now. We spent some time together at the previous festival we went to. Her name is Saghar. If you guys have a problem pronouncing the GH, she did say that some people call her Sarah or Sugar, which I think sounds like a stripper name. But
yeah, no, actually, the name was chosen in school, so it's not
Sugar?
a super name. Yeah. So when I moved here, I had this friend from China. Actually, she also just moved here, and then she looked at my name. She was trying so hard to say my name. Well, everybody was trying so hard to say my name, and I don't know if I should say this here, but I'm just gonna say it. A lot of people would say it as Saghar.
That's so hilarious to me.
Which, yeah.
Saghar. Okay, Sag in Farsi means dog. Har means like wild.
Exactly.
Like a rabid dog.
Exactly. So, and then just my friend just looked at it and she was like, "Oh, it's kind of spelled like sugar." So I was like, "Okay, sugar is better than Saghar."
It's actually kind of cute.
Oh yeah, so
I like it.
That's how.
Before we get into this podcast episode, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Saghar, not Saghar. Or Sugar.
Emphasis on the ta.
If this is not a professional place, but if it was, I would go with Sarah. Although sometimes I don't respond to that name.
Sarah?
Yeah, because
you're so not a Sarah. Maybe a Sugar, but not a Sarah.
I know. And then sometimes people ask me, "Is there an H at the end?" And I'm like, "Sorry, I don't care. It's
I really don't care. It's not even my name.
It's not even my name." I graduated from Biomedical Sciences. Right now, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. But
which we'll have to get into because she's having somewhat of a mental breakdown, which I can relate to. Anyways.
And I do bio and biochem tutoring for anyone interested.
That's sick. Okay, so we did go to a festival together. We went to Sideburn. We spent a few days around each other and we had lots of late night conversations around the campfire. And we had some really, really deep conversations about like the pressures of being like a Persian daughter. And I thought that was an interesting conversation. And I kind of want to talk to you a little bit more about that. So how do you want to start the conversation for them about that whole topic?
I want to start with the topic of perfectionism.
Okay.
Because it's currently ruining my life.
Yeah.
And it kind of sounds cool. So like when I tell people to like, because I think a lot of Persians or in general like Middle Easterns, they're perfectionist people, mostly because of their parents and the way they're raised. And when a lot of people hear that, they're like, "Oh, so you do everything perfect?" It's not what it is at all.
Yeah.
For example, like I honestly like first, because I always had an idea that I'm a perfectionist and I used to think that it's cool, like I'm a perfectionist. But then I realized it's literally ruining my life. So like I'll give you an example. Like let's say I don't wake up the time I'm supposed to in the morning. Like I've set up the
What
alarm
time is that?
Like let's say 8 a.m.
Okay.
I was aiming to wake up on 8 a.m. and I have nothing to do. Like I can wake up at 10 a.m. That's no problem. But I don't wake up at 8 a.m. I sleep until 10 a.m. I would just literally go ahead and ruin my day and not notice. Just
so many people are gonna relate to that because I've heard that from so many people.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah. And then I wouldn't even notice this. So like the whole day, like my brain would be, okay, so so far you fucked up. Mm-hmm. So you just fucked up the rest of your day too.
That's how your brain works?
That's how my brain works. So I either have days that I'm working so hard, like I'm like literally killing myself, like burning out myself, like exercising and like cleaning and studying, or I either have these days that I do nothing, like completely nothing, and then at the end of the day my brain's like, "Hey, you haven't done any shit today. I don't have any dopamine. I want dopamine. Go drink some alcohol." So
that's so funny.
So I would even finish the day with doing something that just gives me some cheap fake dopamine.
Like dopamine? Yeah, I feel that. You know what it is though about perfectionism? Like people who are not perfectionists, like you said, assume that being a perfectionist is cool because you do everything perfect. But in reality, there's no such thing as perfect. So people who are perfectionists are always aiming towards something that's impossible. And what happens when you aim towards something that's impossible is it like breaks your spirit because you constantly feel like a failure. Right? So it's not necessarily that you do everything perfect or even that you do things really well. It's actually, it could be the opposite. So like this used to be a thing when I was younger, that when I went to like interviews, like job interviews, and they asked me what my weakness was, I'd be like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, because that was supposed to be like a good weakness. But then I really thought about it and I was like, that's actually a fucking horrible weakness, because like when I used to be like a server, sometimes you can't do things perfectly because you have things happening really fast paced and you get more tables and you have to go attend to them. My brain would not be able to move on from a task, even though I had to. I was in a time constraint. I needed to move on. And I could not move on until I perfected it and then moved on, which actually made me a pretty horrible server, if you ask me. So there's a lesson on perfectionism.
Yeah, no, for sure. Honestly, since I've known myself, I've been just waiting for the perfect day.
Yeah.
And
Has
to
it come
come.
yet?
Like, no, it's been like at least 20 years. It doesn't come.
It's never gonna come. There's no perfection.
Yeah,
in anything.
exactly. And then I guess the good point is you start realizing these about yourself, because I feel like something that goes hand in hand with perfectionism is also procrastination. Like you see like procrastination, or I used to think that I was lazy, but then I read something that actually kind of like changed the way I was thinking about it. And it was like, if you were lazy, you would just do nothing and not care about it. If you do nothing and then at night in the bed you're eating up yourself, which is literally me, like,
yeah, me too.
and it becomes like a cycle, then it's not laziness. Like, you have to approach it in another way. And then with more research, basically I figured out like procrastination is very hand in hand with procrastination and like perfectionism, because you want to do it perfectly. So that's why sometimes you need to wait until that last moment, and then you just have enough motivation to go. Like I would, like, since I know myself, I've been studying, so I'm just gonna give a studying example. So I would just not study, and then literally 2 days before my exam, because that was, I knew if I don't start now, I'm basically done. But those 2 days, I would actually study perfectly, like from the morning
when the time
to night.
crunch. You know what it is though? Do you have ADHD?
Yeah, I've been in denial for so many years, but I guess I do.
High levels of procrastination could also be attributed to ADHD. I don't know. I've learned from this podcast and having multiple guests on this podcast that apparently not everybody believes ADHD. I do believe that ADHD exists, I guess. I just don't approach it in the same like medical sense as like modern like medicine, I guess. I just think certain people are ADHD, and so you need to do certain maybe like holistic exercises and meditating and stuff to like constantly ground yourself. But in a way, I think it's a superpower. I don't think that people who are ADHD need to be medicated for it. But that's neither here nor there. Everybody's different. I have ADHD, so for myself, I don't. But high levels of procrastination are typically related to ADHD because I'm the same way. Also, this is unrelated but funny. Do you have ADHD rage? Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so like for example, I will be locked in something, anything. So like locked in studying, locked in doing my makeup, locked in watching a show. And then somebody will come and like tap me on the shoulder to ask me something, and I just lose my shit. Because I was in the zone and somebody like interrupted me from that zone, and I don't even know how to explain to you why that happens, because it has no logical like foundation. I just absolutely lose my shit.
I actually like being in the zone. I know exactly what you mean because it honestly like takes a long time for me to get into the zone. And then when I'm in the zone, it's just like so simple to take me out somehow. But no, like I wouldn't say necessarily I get the rage, but when I'm in the zone and I get distracted, it's so hard for me to go back. And actually with ADHD, like it's I think it's a very interesting topic and I agree with you. I also don't look at it in the sense that like the medicine looks at it these days. I feel like actually a big part of it it's our lifestyle. So like imagine you're waking up, the first thing you do in the morning is you start literally like scrolling between all these short reels, less than a minute. And then like during the day you have all these sources of cheap dopamine like social media, like video games, and ADHD and dopamine are very related to each other. I feel like in the life that we're living today, it's first of all, we do have a lot of sources of cheap dopamine. And then the other thing is we're overstimulated. Like our brain is jumping between all these things, like all the notifications. You don't even watch a single video for 2 minutes.
That's true.
You literally scroll. So you're training your brain to jump between all these tasks. Obviously, it's not going to want to sit and study for 1 hour.
Your brain is like conditioned to look for like short term gratification in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel you. And like that's one aspect of it. And also the other aspect of it for me that I don't necessarily subscribe to is like children. Like there's this episode of Family Guy that I always think about when I think about this, which is they tell like Stewie that he's ADHD, so they start like medicating him with like Adderall and stuff, and he turns into an absolute tweaker, and he's just like his eyes, his pupils are dilated, and he's freaking out. And I really do think about that because like kids, like I feel like just do have a shorter attention span because they're children. Their brain hasn't fully developed. You know what I mean? They don't even half the time, they don't even know what the fuck they're concentrating on. You know what I mean? And then to like medicate children as if like they should be, it feels very like barbaric to me. It feels like sinister. Because it's like they're kids. What are you like training them to be compliant and good like workers? Like I don't know. I just don't appreciate that, and I don't. That's another aspect of ADHD I don't like. I don't even know how we got into this.
Yeah, it's ADHD.
Welcome to my podcast,
Thank you.
where we just talk about whatever. Okay, so I know a lot about you in terms of you being a perfectionist, you pursuing higher education, all this stuff. But I want to know more about you. I want to know, like, what makes you happy? What do you, like to do? Who are you?
Okay, I like that question. So what makes me happy? Honestly, I think that's a very hard question to answer. And I guess, like, I feel like it should be a hard question for a lot of people. I thought about that question for a long time, actually. I guess for me, happiness is whenever actually I'm able to step out of all those voices in my mind and be present in the moment. Like even right now, if I'm able to just be present here, which I am because there's a camera, but yeah, whenever I try to be present in the moment and actually be there, if I'm walking, if I'm tasting food, if I'm just like hanging out with my friend, I guess that moment is happy for me. And usually I'm not happy when I let the past and the future thought kind of get into the middle of whatever I'm doing.
And like break your spirit?
Exactly. And break my spirit. Because I feel like happiness is now. And if you like for you to be happy is for you to be able to be present right in this moment, because the past is past and the future is not there yet. So I guess that was basically my answer. I actually searched about it a lot because I feel like a lot of us like have these things in my mind, like like let's say goals, they can be materialistic, like I want this car, I want this house to be happy, or they can be like even job related, like for me personally, like for example getting that A+ that I wanted, and they do give you happiness, but it's very interesting.
You're so cute. She's always looking for the A+. Okay,
A+, always A+. But like I realized, more than calling them happiness, I would call them like a short-term pleasures, because I've realized, like before having my car, I was just so like when I thought of like having a car and like driving in my car, it would just even the idea would make me so happy. Then I got my car, and after 2 weeks I was like, okay, you know, or like that A+ I got it, and it was like, okay. So then I realized it's actually not about the material, or it's not even about the goals. It's just being able to be fully present in that moment, and
in every moment,
and just exactly, and just enjoying whatever you're doing, and just like tell the future and the past like voice to shut up. I'm just trying to be here.
Yeah. You know what though? Okay. Everyone like always says that you should be present. And I agree with that. And I think that's why like I meditate, even in my own life, I always try to be present. But I've noticed something that I've actually never talked to anyone about, which is I know a lot of people in my, even in my close like friend group, that are too present. And that's probably going to sound so funny. And what I mean by too present is like being in the present for them is an escape from their past and their future. And that, in my opinion, is not okay either, because if you sacrifice your present for the future, that's wrong. If you sacrifice your present for the past, that's wrong. But if you also cannot bear to think about your past or your future, that to me also says something, right? So like for you, for example, what you said about the car situation and like getting, like, to me, that's an indication of like what I consider to be like a future for me is not fully thought out, and it's not as meaningful as I'd like it to be. So maybe I need to rethink my future in a way that is meaningful, so that when I do get there, I actually feel like accomplished instead of feeling like, whatever, you know? Or about your past. Yeah, you want to be in the present, but like if the conversation of your past comes up and you can't bear to talk about it, or if you can't confront your past in any kind of way and you just prefer to do anything to be in the moment, that's also a problem. That means you haven't made peace with your past. Do you think that you have fully, A, made peace with your past, and B, have thought about what kind of future you would want to have?
So I would absolutely agree with what you said, but I feel like in my case, I'm usually the opposite. Like, because the reason that I say I'm trying to be present in the moment, it's usually that I'm not. I'm either thinking about my future, like I don't know if I should say this here, but like even the first time I did Molly, like a party drug, like I look around and everybody's like partying, and you know, my thoughts were still about my future, like coming to the conclusion, oh my God, I can be anything I want. Like even like about my literally like the habits I want to make. And what was interesting for me, like after that, my friend asked us like, what was your experience? And I thought for everyone, they probably had experiences like me, like, because all the time I was analyzing myself, I was analyzing people around me, like looking at their dance moves and be like, oh, this dance move tells me something about their personality, like I can see
That's
that
funny.
Like, and then my friend told me, you were thinking about all that? And I was like, you weren't? Because like I thought everybody would have like kind of
like a deep,
exactly. And then he told me I was I was just thinking, oh my God, I'm having so much fun in this moment. And honestly, I was so jealous
Was
of
that friend Photoshop?
No.
Because that's such a Photoshop thing to say.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
And then honestly, like I was so jealous of that because then I realized like a lot of the times, even when I get drunk and I'm dancing, I'm thinking about my future or I'm trying to figure out something about my past. I think those moments are really good and I absolutely do have those moments. I'm just the kind of person that I analyze myself and my feelings a lot. Like, for example, every time I get jealous, I wouldn't just say, oh, I got jealous. Like
You think about why.
I think about
Yeah,
why.
me too.
And I always come to a conclusion. Or even I think about the way people treat me. Or like if my sister said me something. Or if my friend like told me something. Because I know it comes from somewhere. And I actually always find the roots. Like not always, like, but most of the times. So like actually this year, one of my goals were try to be more present. So I think there needs to be a balance between you learning from your past and you having goals for your future, but at the same time, just being able to enjoy whatever you're doing.
So the present is not an escape, but like an option that you choose.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with
Exactly.
that. I think for as long as it's an option that you actively choose and intentionally choose, I think it's one of the most admirable things. And I think it's what everyone should strive towards. But I think if you feel like you need to always be in the present as an escape, then that also is an indication of something. But in terms of thinking about everything and how people perceive you and how you perceive others and what things mean and like what interactions mean, I'm 100% that way too. And we did a lot of that when we were camping together. So I completely get that. I have a very random and super deep question for you. It came to my mind and now I can't ignore it. So we have to talk about it. Sometimes, obviously, everybody gets mistreated at some point in their life. And it hurts. But sometimes it's not necessarily that what the other person did was objectively hurtful. It's just that it picks at like a certain wound that you have that really, really hurts you. But it could be like the smallest thing ever. Have you ever had a moment where someone did something and it was something very minuscule, but it hurt you a lot because it picked at like a deep-rooted wound that you had?
Like I would say probably not something they did, but a sentence they said, which which like probably maybe usually like wouldn't like maybe be that big of a deal. So I'll tell actually what the sentence is. Like you're a suck up. So
Someone said you're a suck
you're
up.
a suck up. And at that moment, it's like maybe if I heard that sentence like before or after, it wouldn't hurt me that much. But it wasn't a point that I started realizing because of my past or the traumas I've had. Like I feel like when you're a kid, you're just trying to survive. So you try to do all those things without analyzing them to survive. But what you're doing, all the data that comes in makes your subconscious mind. So when you're an adult, that subconscious mind is running in the background. Even though you're not consciously aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, there was a time that it was necessary for your survival and you did it and your subconscious knows it now and you keep doing it. And when it comes to me, like I know this is something that I've realized and I'm actually trying to work on myself. I am a people pleaser and and it's actually because what I was going through as a child, I had to do that to survive and continue. And I feel like the fear deep down is actually I'm very scared to be left alone. So I try to be so nice to people.
So they don't leave you.
Exactly. So I feel like even perfectionism to some extent may come from this because I feel like if I'm too perfect, if I'm fun, if I'm smart, if I'm all those things, the people that I love would not leave me because I'm perfect, because I'm very nice. So in that moment and like me realizing this fact about myself and that person saying that, it just hurt me so much.
How long ago was this?
This was like 2 years ago, and it was actually from my sister.
That's so funny, and you still remember this, eh? You know what though? I completely relate to that because I was the exact same way. Like you and I actually bonded about this when we went to the festival. Like I was also very much raised in a family where if you accomplished enough, like the love was not unconditional. If you accomplished enough, then maybe you deserved some love and attention. If you didn't accomplish enough, then you deserve nothing. So like, and I'm not saying that that was the case for you. I had like a very extreme end of that. And because of that, I also grew up being a people pleaser. As much as people look at me and think like, oh, she doesn't give a fuck. Like people always tell me, oh, I love how you don't give a fuck. I love how whatever. I think I'm better now, but for the majority of my life, I've been a people pleaser. And not even a people pleaser in like a shallow way of like, oh, like being nice and whatever. I've like devoted my life and taken on things just to please people that don't even matter. You know what I mean? So like I completely get that. But what in your life, like for me, like when I was young, my mom left, my dad left, then my brother left. Like a lot of people were in and out of my life. So for that reason, and I attributed that to me because of the way I was raised, to me maybe not being good enough. And that's what led me to people pleasing. What led you to people pleasing? Like, was it some traumatic thing or a lot of things?
I actually feel like I would say probably there's three main reasons. Like, first of all, like I'm the oldest child. This is the kind of trauma that you kind of see in older children. And the reason is, imagine like you're 5 years old, you don't understand. And then all of a sudden you see all of your mom's and dad's attention on somebody else. Like, you know, like you're this baby and you don't understand anything. And then all of a sudden, all the attention that was on you, it's on somebody else. So you feel like you're being left alone. And I feel like when you feel like you're left alone, just people pleasing also comes with it. Just kind of like perfectionism and procrastination. It's like something that kind of like comes hand in hand. And my, like the other thing for me is losing my mom when I was 12 years old. I feel like that also made the very big impact on me because again like 12 years old like doesn't understand that much. I feel like being left alone when I was 12 and being the older sister and kind of being the mom now to my younger sister, like I feel like I felt like I was left alone and then I had to be so nice so that people don't leave me. And I feel like another thing that is kind of common in all of us actually is immigration, because imagine like when you're home you're just surrounded with all these people, like grandmother, cousins, and like friends of friends, and like all the neighbors, and like you know how it is back home. Like people are much more together. People like have like every night
a community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I feel like when you come here and then like you have nobody, it also like plays a role. So I feel like for me personally, it's these three main reasons that, yeah. So, and again, this is like very subconsciously. So when you go back to your conscious mind, I mean, you immigrated, a lot of people do. That doesn't mean that you were left alone. But I feel like your subconscious mind, it's actually it's like that kind of non-logical, stupid part of your brain that just sees the data, makes the conclusion, and then runs you like without you knowing what's happening. And there is the conscious part of your mind that actually can think and make conclusions and be like, no, that this shouldn't be this. But actually coming to those roots a lot of the times can be really hard. And that's one thing that I really like doing, like about all of my habits. So, you know, like back, like maybe a few years ago, I used to be, I'm a procrastinator, whatever. It's just what I am. But now I'm like, okay, I'm a procrastinator. That comes from somewhere. Why? Or like, for example, like one thing else, like I've realized it actually runs in my family. We either don't drink, or when we drink,
we drink to oblivion.
Exactly. And then before I used to be like, yeah, like it's just how I am, and I have a high tolerance and just like be so proud of that. But then I started thinking there's a problem. Why do you do that? Like, you know, like there's a point you're happy if you go on like, not that I threw up, but you don't remember the nights, and then the a day after you feel miserable. Why do you do that? So like I feel like in everything that we do, like sometimes we feel like it's random or it's just the way that we are, but there's a root to it.
Oh, 100%.
There's a reason to it, and if you want to solve it, it's the best to find that root, which probably goes against what a lot of Persian parents think. You know, like how they're so like they
They're
don't
like, just get over it.
yeah, just get over it. Like whatever it is, just like get over it.
Or like one thing I used to hear from my mom a lot, or even my dad, was don't think about it.
Exactly.
If I told them that I felt some way that was negative, they would be like, first of all, I'm feeling a certain kind of way. But they would say, just don't think about it. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I know. And like one thing else, like I don't know if you had this in your home or not. I feel like there's so much against crying. You know, like don't cry. Like what? Like is this gonna fix your problem? Like are you a baby? Yes, I am a baby. Like
First of all, yeah.
First of all, and then like. And this is also like something I've realized. Like I feel like I have a problem crying, but sometimes it's just a way of showing your emotions, just like how you laugh. Sometimes you need to cry, but because when I was a child, whenever I cried, I was like, "Oh, you're such a baby. Why are you crying? Like it's not gonna solve any of the problems." Okay, yeah, it's not gonna solve any of the problems, but let me express myself. So yeah, so it's kind of cool realizing how a lot of the things that you went through as a child, like it is shaping some of your behaviors and some of your experiences. And it's I feel like a lot of the times, like one conclusion that I've come to, it's criticizing yourself doesn't work.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to be kind to yourself. You have to understand
God.
yourself.
I have such a deep rooted thought about this whole like being kind to yourself. Okay, I do this thing. I don't know if you also do this thing. I feel like you do. I sit down and I start with like a thesis, almost like an idea that I have in my head. And then I try to like develop it as much as I possibly can. So I think about it for days, weeks, months at a time until I reach a conclusion that is like beneficial to my life and other people's lives. And like I write like fucking like theses and arguments and fucking case comments and novels in my head. One of the things that I thought about like very in-depthly for a very long period of time was the relationship between your emotions, your mind, and your soul.
Wow.
And that's why I remember even when we were camping, I told you, I said, read the book, The Untethered Soul. And I thought about this a lot because you know how people say, oh, sometimes you just have to tell your mind to shut the fuck up. Sometimes you have to just tell your emotions to shut the fuck up. We hear this a lot in our generation. And for some reason, that never sat right with me. It never felt right. I was like, why would I tell my mind to shut the fuck up? Like, why would I tell? And I really thought about this. And it's like, the conclusion that I arrived at is that your mind, your heart, and even to a certain extent, your soul, they work for you. They are mechanisms. They're like if you're the CEO, they're like your employees, your top performing employees. And in order to have a good relationship with them, you can't just tell them to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? You have to actually, this is something that Jordan Peterson also sometimes says, is that you actually have to negotiate with them. There's a reason why, even when negative, your mind is telling you certain things. There's a reason, even if it's negative. If your emotions are telling you something, as invalid or inconvenient as they might be, there's a reason. And if something is not aligned properly in this system of governance that is you, then your mind will go against your heart will go against your soul, and you have to all negotiate in a way where everybody is performing their function. So then that led me to the conversation of like the thought of what is the function of my mind? what is the function of my heart and what is the function of my soul. And for me, I think the function of my mind is fact-based. My mind is supposed to tell me, gather the facts, analyze the facts, and tell me what's in my surroundings, what are in my interactions, just facts, only facts. And so when I get a negative thought, there shouldn't be any emotions attached to it because it's just a thought. That's what my mind does. And if I'm aware of that, then I know that that's what my brain does and that's how it's performing. Okay? There's danger. We don't trust this person. There is something negative about this interaction. There is something unsafe about this interaction. That's my brain. For my emotions, it's a matter of, okay, we've observed the facts. How does this make us feel? How do I personalize this? How am I internalizing this? How is this relevant to me? That's where your experiences come in. Where sometimes because of something that your brain has picked up, you feel more empathetic. Sometimes because of something your brain has picked up, you feel more like distant, scared, off guard, whatever. That's you applying the facts to your experiences. That's your emotions. And that's why you feel the way that you do. Your soul, in my opinion, is the third party. This is also in the book that I told you to read. That's observing your mind and your brain.
I got goosebumps.
You know what I mean? So your soul is there to tell you that, okay, we've observed these facts. We've applied it to our experiences in this way. Now what resonates? You know what I mean? What feels, what like, I guess the easiest way to say it is just what resonates. You know what I mean? Like, how do I want to proceed based on what my mind and my heart have gathered? What resonates with me? And then you decide based on ultimately, I think, your soul. So people are like, oh, you should mind over emotions. And what? It's neither of those. It's your soul. Ultimately, your soul decides, despite the experiences that we've had and how we feel, despite the facts that we've gathered and whatever, this is the kind of person we want to be. We don't want to be a scared person. We don't want to be a triggered person. We don't want to be this kind of person. So this is how your soul is like the better part of you. It rises above immediate things. It's your connection to God. You know what I mean? And that's how you move forward. Does that resonate with you? Know what I'm saying?
I do actually. Like, these are the topics I do think about a lot. Sometimes I think if I'm weird, but
You're not, obviously not.
But like every day I wake up and I like try to like think about this stuff. Like, first of all, like the fact that you write thesis and then like it's such a lawyer stuff. Very lawyery.
How worried. I don't know. I think it's who I am.
It's actually very nice. I like that. Like, for me personally, like one thing that I do like daily, or if not daily, I journal. And
that's dope.
And a lot of the times it's about my feelings. So like I want to start by saying this, that the reason that I came to the conclusion that I need to be kind to myself is that I actually went through my journals and it was always something negative. Like, I would never appreciate something I've done in the day. For example, if I got an A+, but then I would be mad, like literally like Persian parents, why didn't you exercise today?
That's so funny.
Or like I exercised, but I didn't say, why didn't you study today?
Yeah.
Like you know, sometimes they literally, even though if you've had a super good day,
it doesn't
find
matter.
that one thing that you did. Why didn't you wash the dishes today?
Yeah.
So that was a somehow Indian accent, but
I got the point.
Yeah. So then after reading those, just looking at somebody to those journals and not me, like let's say I just looked at it as a third person and I was like, oh my god, like why are you this harsh to yourself? Like, this doesn't work. Like, you know, like this criticism doesn't work. If I wanted to, for example, like help my sister or somebody else, if they went through whatever I was going through, I would be super kind to them. I would be super supportive. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, you're literally the dearest person to yourself because you're going to be with you until the end. And look how you're treating yourself. This is not the way it's supposed to be. And then after that, my journal's starting kind of like I started with being grateful for my health, which I am. I feel like if you're healthy, it's probably the biggest thing you have. Like you can make other things like from that. And then I started analyzing my emotions, like whatever emotion I had that day or whatever thought I had that day. And the topic that you brought up is very interesting because I know, like, you know, like how you said some people say, tell to your mind, shut the fuck up. I feel like this is the difference between people. I feel like some people, until the end of their lives, they chose escape as that coping mechanism. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to go deep. They don't want to analyze it. It's denial. And to be honest, I've been in that state and sometimes I am, but I've also learned for me to actually solve that problem, to actually know where that emotion comes from. Sometimes I need to literally sit, face it. It's harsh. I've cried, I've screamed, I've been mad for 2 weeks, but I've noticed that's the only way to actually solve it. Otherwise, you're just putting it in this box in the back of your mind, and it's gonna keep coming back. It's gonna keep haunting you. So like even though if it's uncomfortable, because I feel like a few years ago I had this stage that I was always, or at least I thought I was always happy. I was never depressed. I was never sad. I was always smiling, doing something like energetic. And then a stage came that I started being more real. And then there were days that I was depressed. There were days that I needed to cry. And first, that was just, it was, I don't know, it was just like I wasn't liking that state of me because I was in denial before because I feel like a person that's happy every day is in denial. I mean, even if you look at the nature, like there is summer, it's so green, and then there's winter, and it's kind of like dry and like there's no leaves. So it keeps changing. And I feel like to grow, you also need to go through all that emotions, all that stages.
That's so interesting because I always think the same thing. And we do that. And like, that's the thing though, when you're healing, when you're working on yourself, your goal is to get to a point where you feel good. But healing itself doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? Because you start to, like, even sometimes you start to make friends with certain dark parts of you. And when you feel like you're losing them, you feel sad because that's all you've ever known. Like, I've had certain coping mechanisms that I've developed as a kid. For example, like being angry, being aggressive. That was like one of my biggest coping mechanisms, which interestingly enough, now my dog has. Which is a conversation of its own. But so like that was one of my biggest coping mechanisms, being angry, being very aggressive. And when I reached a point in my life where I'm not fully there yet, but when I had healed a lot in that sense and I was losing a little bit of that aggression and that anger, it was making me sad actually. Because I was like, that's what I've known my whole life. That's who I've been my whole life. This character, this angry, aggressive character that I've made for myself is the person who protected me my whole life. And it's almost like sad for you to like say bye to that part of yourself. And like in that way, healing hurts a lot. It doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? And especially if you're someone, like you said, who's used to being in denial and feeling good, you're like, what's the point of feeling like shit if I can just feel good? But if I can say anything about that is that in the end, whatever that end might be, I believe something that, again, Jordan Peterson says, I really like him, certain things about him. And he always says, you can't twist the fabric of life. And I completely agree with that. And I think that's like a beautiful way to put it. No matter how much you lie, how much you suppress things, how much you deny things, in the end, everything will go to its original truth. and that's just how it is. So you can deny something forever, but eventually, if you want to be happy, if you want to actually live and be present, you have to confront those things. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of, do you want to go through that dark, painful healing journey now? Or do you want to be forced to confront those things down the line? You know? So
Yeah, no, that's actually so true. And I feel like, you know, it's very interesting because when I see it in my life or a lot of people around me, it's like until you don't deal with these problems in a right way, universe or whatever you want to call it, it's gonna keep coming your way with the same exact thing in different shapes again and again and again until you learn it and actually move on from it. If you don't learn, it's gonna keep coming. Like, to give you a better, like where maybe like a more like a good example, it's you see with people and a lot of the partners they choose, they have a problem, they break up, they never realize what the problem actually was, whether they're in denial or whatever, like whatever it is, they keep going. They always choose the partners with that one same thing, that the same thing keeps happening to them
until they close the loop.
Exactly, until they close the loop. Like, so I realized for me to actually move on and grow, sometimes I need to realize the problem, even though it's hard, even though it involves loneliness, which is so hard for me because, again, like I'm one of those people that I'm so afraid to be alone. So one of my coping mechanisms has always been surrounding with myself with friends and like not being alone. So there was a stage that I've been trying to do this like recently as well. Like I try to, a lot of the days I stay home and be alone. And that's scary for me because I've never been this way. Like I've always been with my sister, with my dad, or with my friends, or like always like doing something, not being alone. But like one thing I realized, it's a lot of the times I used to do that because I was escaping again my actual fear. So I started realizing, even though if it doesn't feel good at the moment, the only problem to maybe eventually solve it is going through that points of discomfort and like those like points of pain, because no pain, no gain.
Yeah, for sure.
Literally.
No, absolutely. And like, you know what it is? It's not even a matter of learning from it, because again, learning something is predominantly a brain function, a mind function to learn something, to whatever. It's that you have to feel whatever it is that's traumatizing you, or whatever it is that you're having a hard time like understanding. You have to allow yourself to go through those feelings. And a lot of times, like your mind, again, its function being to observe facts, tells you that something is unsafe. This is unsafe. This is not, it's a negative feeling, so it's unsafe. It's unsafe. And you try to like escape it. But the thing is, if you want to heal, you have to feel how you felt when you endured that pain so that you can process it. Process being mind, emotion, and soul. Ultimately, if you want to heal from something, it has to resonate with your soul, and you have to have like almost like a higher function with God or the universe or whatever that you feel that, okay, I understand mentally what's happening. I felt emotionally how I feel and what that situation made me feel like. And now, because my soul connects me to a higher power, I know what I want to walk towards. I know how I want to move on from this. I know what I've learned from this, and I want to move on to something more positive or whatever, right? So like going through that whole cycle of your mind, your emotions, and your soul, if you want to heal from something, you have to go through all of it.
No, that's actually so true. Like, it's interesting for me that you brought this point because I would say like the last 3 years of my life has been very different than what I would usually go through. So So basically I graduated from biomedical sciences 3 years ago, and until graduating from biomedical sciences I feel like my goals were kind of always established for me. Like there's a framework, there's the exam, you do it, A plus, I get it, like it's good. But then afterwards, because I'm thinking about medicine, I was on my own to do MCAT. And MCAT is a challenging exam, and it's a lot of materials. Procrastination doesn't work. It actually requires like a 4 or 5 month of like actually studying and like a good time management and saying no to a lot of the things that you love. So it's been 3 years, 3 years. And in this 3 years, well, the first year I was kind of like in escaping mode. So I did MCAT, but I just went to kind of try to see like how it is. So I didn't study anything. I went and I did MCAT, and I was pretty fine before, after, like for some time before and after, because honestly, like I was so excited to finally finish university, that I was just excited for some experiences. And I was single after a long time, so I was just like, like getting to know boys, and like kind of like got into the partying life, because before graduating I was just so scared. I was like, okay, this is the first thing I need to do. So that, like, first year goes like that. And then the second year comes. In second year, like, I was obviously working, but my actual goal was to get a good mark in MCAT and get into medical school. That was my actual work. I was making money, I was working, I was enjoying my work, but that was my main goal. So second year, like, kind of like, I was trying to study. I wasn't having fun partying that much. Boys, not enough dopamine for me anymore. So I was like kind of like done with that stage as well. And then this conflict starting forming in me. When I thought with my conscious mind, I want medical school, but then when it comes to actually putting the hard work and staying home and saying no to the plans, I wasn't doing it. So for a whole year, I was having this conflict inside me. Do you want it or do you not want it? If you don't want it, just move on from it. Go get your master's. Go like do something. But then I couldn't move on.
Do you want it?
But so actually, I'm gonna come to that. So like, based on whatever like this stuff I've been going through like all this time, because there was a point, because I thought maybe I actually don't want it, because if you actually want it, you would put in the work. Like there are people that literally 6 months, they just stay in the library, they do whatever they need to do, and then they come back from it. But then that's actually when I started analyzing and knowing myself a lot more deeply, like where my procrastination comes from, like what is this fear. And then I started noticing that when I told my dad this sentence, like he was like, that doesn't make any sense, but it honestly makes a lot of sense to me. Like during my undergrad, I saw a lot of people who did their absolute best, and got rejected from every single school. And I feel like inside me, there was this fear that, what if I put my absolute best and then I fail? Like that thought was just so scary for me. So every time that when I would go and do MCAT and then get my mark, and obviously it wasn't that good, I was like, obviously I just studied I studied way.
So you never wanted to do your absolute best, because if you failed, you'd be like, okay, I didn't try my best.
Exactly, because I felt like if I do my best and then I fail, that starts questioning my abilities. Like that starts questioning the actual me. But if I don't put enough work, there's always a simpler solution. Next time, if you put more work, you're gonna go get it. I feel like, so that's, and what you mentioned about God is interesting, because I feel like after years, the last 2 years was actually when I feel like I started getting connected to God more. I've always been one of those people that I've never asked for help, and I've never acknowledged that I need help. But in the last 2 years, I feel like there was a point that I started realizing, okay, I need help. And one of those asks for help was kind of like constructing my relationship with God again. We can call it God, higher power, source energy. I feel like it can
Whatever,
go by
it resonates,
exactly,
yeah.
but by a lot of the names. But again, like I feel like this is my opinion. I feel like all of us are here for a purpose, and when we're far from that purpose, we're unhappy. We need to be in alignment with that purpose to be happy. And like when there's a conflict between whatever we're doing and whatever we're meant to do, I feel like that's when unhappiness comes from. So I've been trying a lot to find my purpose and like see what it is in this life that I need to do. And then I came to the conclusion that whether it's I'm gonna try my best for MCAT. I just did it. My mark is coming out soon, June 10. Wish me luck. I don't want to check it, but
I think you did okay.
So I promised myself, like, honestly, this time I was just so proud of myself because even though I didn't do it 6 months, for a whole month, I just stayed home. I said no to everything and I studied. And that's something that I usually never do. Like I was just like study 3 days and then go. So this was like a part of my challenge. This was a challenge in this studying for my studying that I've never faced before, because I always like 3 days was enough for me. Like I would get my like A plus or A and like whatever and like move on from it. And this was a kind of like a failure because I was trying to study, I couldn't, and then I did it like the 2 times I did it. First time I just studied nothing, like nothing. And shockingly, I didn't do that bad. Second time I studied more, I did worst. Because I feel like I was more.
Fucked.
Because I feel like I was stressed.
It's your worst nightmare.
I know. I know.
To actually try and fail.
It's-
Can I ask you a question? Be honest. Okay? Don't give me some bullshit Persian daughter fucking answer.
Okay, I'll try.
Why? Okay, let me word this properly because we're all scared of failure. But what makes you so afraid of failure? First of all, what do you think failure is? What's failure for you?
So I'm actually like, that's something I'm trying to maybe change my perspective on. But I guess failure for me is doing whatever is my power and not getting the results that I want.
Is this applicable to every area of your life or just
I guess,
studying?
yeah. It does. It actually like it. I've realized it even comes in sometimes in my relationships with guys. It's like, you know, like if I actually like a guy, and then like, cause I'm really not a person to play games. I would never play games. I'm always myself. But then it has happened. There's been incidences that I like the guy and then I really like the guy and then I start searching, okay, when like should I respond right away or like should I, you know, like actually going after those psychology techniques and like seeing like, you know,
Because you're afraid of pursuing them and then failing.
exactly.
Okay, let's redirect this conversation. So I asked you, what do you consider failure? And you said, trying my best and not getting the results that I want. Okay. What happens, like emotionally speaking, mentally speaking, or even practically speaking, when you try your best and don't get the results that you want? How does it make you feel?
You know, like I feel like during my life, I've known myself to be the person that gets whatever she wants. And if that belief is destroyed, I feel like I wouldn't know who I am. So like I feel like I would start questioning like who I am. And one of the reasons I have this complicated relationship with medicine is because for years I've known myself as someone who's gonna do this. And if it's destroyed, I feel like I kind of lose myself in this process. I feel like I don't know who I am because this is the way I've perceived myself for years. And that's a scary question for myself because when I ask in my head, I want to be able to kind of like reply to who I am. Failure is not aligned with that because again, I thought maybe I was lucky, but then like I've come to the conclusion that maybe I was unlucky because I feel like during my life growing up, I've never actually experienced failure. Like when I was back home, I studied just a little. I got into Tisushan, like that talented school.
Yeah.
I was always having fun, one of the best students in my class. Whatever sport I started, like people would try way harder. I would just like do a little and I was just already so good at it.
I relate to this so much. So let me ask you this question, right? Why do you think that you are your accomplishments? Because this is a problem that I had too. For as long as you think that you're the result, like for as long as you perceive your worth in the result of the things that you do, your fate is in the hands of other people. Because you can fail for a plethora of reasons. You could fail because you're unlucky. I believe in luck. You can fail because in a particular situation you got unlucky. You could fail for practical reasons. You could fail because of circumstances. You could fail for a lot of things, for a lot of reasons that are not inherent or related to you. So for as long as you perceive your worth as being in the result of the things that you do, your fate is in the hands of other people. And this is something that we talked about a little bit when we were camping. I think, and trust me, I'm not saying this from like my high horse, whatever. The only reason I'm so passionate about this conversation is because I was only freed of those shackles when I put things into perspective and realized that I'm not the things that I do. I just am who I am. Let me explain something really funny to you, okay? I had a time in my life where I felt like God was unhappy with me. And I don't care if this sounds delusional to anybody. I really don't care. Throughout all the things I've been through in my life, and I've been through some I haven't really ever talked about it here to a deep extent, but I've been through some fucking horrendous shit. Especially as a child, I've been through some fucking fucked up shit. And I always, throughout all of it, I felt like God loved me. I never had a moment where I was like, why does God not love me? Ever. I don't know why. I should have, but I didn't. But there was a brief point in my life, for the first time, and it was in my adult life, where I felt like God was unhappy with me. Nothing in my life was falling into place. And I don't mean things were bad. They just weren't meshing. Everything it wasn't resonating. It wasn't like landing where it should, you know? And I sat down. I may or may not have been sober. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, if I died and I went to heaven or whatever you call it, and God asked me, what was the point of life? What would I say? And I thought to myself, okay, I would say that the point of life is to do good for people, to be kind, to love people, and to do this, and to do that, and to do this. And I thought about all of those things. And all of those things felt like really good thoughts. I felt like I was answering the question the right way, but it wasn't resonating with my soul. And then I had a moment where I was like, it was like my soul speaking. I was like, I think that's why God is mad at me. Because the point of life is not to do anything, even kindness, even love, because those things are all circumstantial. They vary on a plethora of factors that affect them, right? The point of life, and literally when I was thinking this thought, it was God talking to me in my head. That was like, no, I gave you this life for you to be you, because you are a part of the puzzle.
Goosebumps.
You know what I mean? And I literally had this moment and I was like crying, because I was like, that is the purpose of life. If you're a good person, or if you're a bad person, or if you're whatever, the only thing that you are required to do in this life is to show up as yourself, so that the puzzle, which is life, could come together the way that it's supposed to come together. Bad people put certain things into perspective for good people. Good people affect somebody's life in exactly the way that they're supposed to, good or bad. And unless we are all showing up as ourselves, there's always something that doesn't fit. Do you know what I mean? And like, even in like so I feel like this thing that you have, that I also have, of like being a perfectionist, of being afraid of failure. And I'm not trying to scare you. Not only is it a harmful belief, but it's like, it's ungodly. You know what I mean? God doesn't want you to torture yourself and mend yourself and force yourself and change yourself and be upset at yourself and whatever. God wants you to just show up as yourself, as exactly who you are. You know? And people ask this question of like, yeah, but like, what if I'm not? I literally had this conversation with someone and they said this. What if who I am is like a very lazy person? What if I'm whatever and this and that? And it's like, the only people that think that way are people who don't have a good relationship with themselves. People that don't trust themselves. Because if you trust yourself fully, the way that we talked about, mind, emotion, soul, you know, even if you lie to yourself, even if you're really good at lying to yourself, you know when you're being lazy and when you're just actually being a way that you are. You know when you need to surpass your comfort zone and the pain you feel is pain of growing, and you know when the pain is pain of resistance, like don't go this way. You know that. Your intuition knows that. You know what I mean? And if you just are yourself, that part of you will keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And you'll know yourself so well, and being yourself and just feels easy.
No, I completely agree with that. I think that's very well said. I just in general, like I feel like a lot of the problems that we have, the problems that arises, it comes from a conflict, and a lot of the times in us. It's just like how you said, it's like, you know, you're lying to yourself. If you actually acknowledge that you're lying to yourself, you would feel better. But if a part of you says, no, you're saying the truth, but the other part knows you're lying, that conflict makes you feel bad. I genuinely feel like that's also where depression comes from. Like, you have this beliefs of how to live a life, like how to be, what to do, and then you are doing the opposite. I feel like that conflict makes you feel depressed. You know you're not supposed to be friends with these people, but because of your comfort zone, you are. You know you're not supposed to be in this relationship, but because of whatever reason you are. You know you're not supposed to do this work, but for whatever reason you're doing. And the result of this conflict is that you feel depressed. And honestly, a lot of the times it's so hard to solve that conflict, because I feel like for your brain, it always wants to be where it doesn't need to do any work. Like how you said, it doesn't want to face the negative emotions because it has defined them as like negative. And I feel like, like I actually read something it was in Persian. I feel like it's more created in Persian, but it makes a lot of sense. It's like, imagine you walked away for 30 years and there's like all sorts of bruises on your legs, and now you have to tell your legs you've walked the wrong way. You have to go back. You don't want to tell yourself that, like when you've been so persistent in doing something, even though if it's wrong, your brain says you've put in all this effort, all this work, and now like to be like it was wrong, go back, choose something else. It's so hard. So sometimes it just chooses to be in that way. Just keep doing whatever it was doing.
But then if I understand that. And that's how I was my whole life. But until you do that, until you tell the truth, you'll never be happy.
Exactly.
And the reason for that is because, again, this is exactly why I sat down. I'm telling you, I thought about this for months. This is not just like something that it's so much more that I could tell you about this whole mind, heart, soul connection that I've thought about. But one really important thing about it is that you can lie to your mind. You can trick your mind easily. You can lie to your heart. You can make yourself feel different ways because this is the thing, right? Even when you think about the way that they control us, which is something everyone talks about, social media or this or that, or whatever, they come in through our minds. Our minds trigger our emotions. So even your emotions can be manipulated. You know what I mean? That's the whole basis of cognitive behavioral therapy is that thoughts trigger emotions, emotions trigger thoughts, and it just goes on and on, right? The only part of yourself that you can't lie to is your soul. So even if you get your mind on board, even if you get your emotions on board, your soul will never be on board with something that's not true. And the reason for that, in my opinion, and people could disagree with me, is because your soul is the essence of God in you. Your mind is something you grow as you experience life. Your emotions, the same way. But your soul is something that was given to you by God and something that you will have in your heart for the rest of your life. If you ever notice, even people who are, and I know this for a fact because I grew up with narcissists, okay? They will convince everybody, including themselves, that they're a good person, that they have good intentions, that they whatever, and this and that. Even if the whole world believes them, and in a lot of cases they do because narcissists are very convincing, and they're always the number one person to believe themselves. Okay? They create this reality that they live in. They're always unhappy. I've never met a narcissist that was happy, ever. And I've met a lot. They're never happy. Because your soul, your essence of God, even if you convince your mind one way, your emotions one way, it will never be on board unless you're showing up as exactly who you are, as that soul. Your mission through life is to bring out your soul. You know what I mean?
Actually, that's a very nice mission, and I want to actually add to this point. It's interesting that you've also mentioned your experience with narcissist people. I don't think I grew up with narcissist people, but I'm actually a
narcissist.
No, I'm actually a shock. No, no, I don't think so. No. What's funny is actually like I've noticed like my patterns with like liking a guy. I always get attracted to narcissist guys. Like it's very interesting, and I think it actually comes from my beliefs of maybe being a people pleaser. I think a narcissist
absolutely
and a people pleaser just match like very well, and it's like so that's why like we start realizing like nothing is actually a coincidence. Like you need to start like analyzing things deeper. Now I know you asked the questions, but can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. So based on the conversations that we've had, soul, mind, emotion, do you think we actually have free will?
That's such an interesting topic that I actually have written many theses about in my brain.
Okay.
Do I think that we have free will? I think that it depends. That's such a lawyer answer. It depends. What do you define as free will?
Free will is so actually living this life the way you want it, specifically you, making all the decisions that just aligns with you, and basically, I think that would
I think that if that's how you define it, and I'll agree to that, I think if you live, and this is going to sound so unnecessarily religious, but if you are living the will of God, then I do think that you have free will.
Okay.
I think if you are 100%, and this goes really well with the conversation that we just had, which is if you are 100% authentic and showing up as who God intended you to be, and everything in your life is aligned that way, then you do have free will.
Okay. Actually, my answer to that question is going to be different, but actually very similar to. But very similar to.
Do you think there's free will?
I was gonna say no, but then listen to my answer, because I was gonna say, which is actually your answer, but just like put in different words. It's so if you have that soul and that's your essence, whatever decision you make, whatever change you want to make, it's based on that essence, based on that soul, which according to you is a piece of God. So mine is going to be different than yours. So I was going to say no, because whatever you do is based on that essence. And that essence, you didn't decide about that.
It's God.
It's God.
But that's who you are.
That's who, so yeah.
Who are you other than your essence? Who are you other than your soul? That brings us back to our initial conversation.
Exactly.
You're not your mind. You're not your emotions. You're not the things you do. You're not the things you feel. You are your essence, your soul, which is God.
Exactly.
In my opinion. That's so funny that we arrived at different things.
Different, but kind of the same at the same time.
Yeah.
And you know, like I am a science person. I like studying science, but at the same time, I really love thinking about this kind of stuff. And I know it's so like the professors that I've had, or a lot of people, or maybe even a lot of doctors that are like very close-minded when it comes to topics like this, because they're like, if science doesn't prove it, it doesn't exist. And exactly. And like, and I even like, I always tell them, I'm like, you only see between 400 to 700 nanometers, and you only hear between 20 to 20 kilohertz, which is it's a very small span. The fact that you don't see it, you can't hear it, and you can't prove it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And honestly, like, when I think about what I want to do in my future, I want to be able to combine the different aspects of stuff. Like, for example, like, let's say doctor, if I become a doctor, I would, which I will, I'm not gonna be a normal doctor just focusing on the physical aspect.
I'm a cool doctor.
I'm a cool doctor. And a pretty one too. But I would actually love combining like your, like how you said, your mind, your emotions, and your soul. I would actually like get a lot of practices and a lot of knowledge in spirituality, and then psychology as well, and like how your brain works, because I think these are very connected. I don't know if you've experienced this. Like, whenever I'm sad, I get sick.
Oh, 100%.
Or like, I just in general, like, I feel like I have a strong immune system. You know, like we do this, like, because whenever I say this, I also get sick.
Yeah, I feel you.
But at the same time, like, I feel like one of the reasons that I do have a strong immune system is I try to process stuff. Like, I try to process my emotions, like manage my stress. Like, I really hardly believe that's one of the reasons I do have a strong immune system. And whenever I get sick, I'm usually okay within 2 days, because I'm usually like very positive minded, and I always think, yeah, I'm gonna be good in 2 days. Like,
and it works.
It works. So I feel like combining them like would be such a strong thing. And unfortunately, like, I feel like a lot of people these days just look at the science perspective of it, and if it cannot be proven, it's not true. But at the same time, like, how can you prove some stuff? Like, how can you prove somebody's pattern of thinking and then their vibration based on those thoughts? Like, how in science can you show this?
But it's also a philosophical argument. It's a very long discussion, as is any philosophical argument, but arguing that something isn't just proves that it is. Because something that is nothing is just, how do you explain nothing?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the fact that this is an ongoing conversation, like God, universe, whatever, this and that, just it's like you can't prove nothingness. There's nothing. There's no conversation to be had about nothing. You know what I mean? And like also aside from that, obviously that's like a philosophical argument that I've also partaken in many times. It's like it's so many arguments of like oh, how the way the universe was created, or the way the this and that. I don't even like to get into any of that because again, when you get to that point of trusting yourself and your soul, that connection to God grows and you know who you are, you don't need, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with science. You don't need science to know that something is or isn't because you just know it. Your soul knows it. You know what I mean? And I don't think there's anything in this world stronger than our intuition, because our intuition is our only connection to God, is our connection to God. And like one thing that like I've gotten 99.99% of my confidence from, and my resilience and everything in my life. Like sometimes when I talk to my friends or whatever about like things that I've gone through, they'll be like, oh my God, like how did you must be so strong-minded and this and that and whatever. And it has absolutely nothing to do with that. The only thing that got me through everything I went through is knowing that people can take anything from me. People can take my money, they can ruin my life, they can hurt my body, they can hurt my mind, they can hurt my feelings, they can whatever. There is not a single person on this planet that can take my soul from me. Nobody. Not one person on this planet. And I think that in and of itself is proof that there is God. Because people who, you will go through 1,000,001 things in your life and you will still come out the other side, and you will still be resilient, and you will still grow, and you will still want to help other people and be a good person. It, like in the case of myself, or like ideally, you know, I think that in and of itself is proof. You know what I mean? No one can ever, even if you think about like people who do bad shit, like let's think like child molesters of the world. Let's think pedophiles of the world. One of the reasons why have been concluded that people do these kinds of heinous acts, is because they want to hurt God, and a child is the closest thing to God.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? And even when you think about it in that negative connotation, a child has not developed a mind yet. A child has not developed like emotions in that way yet. But a child has a soul, and that soul is connected to God. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I just, for me, like your connection to your soul and to God and to your essence and to showing up as who you are, I think is the whole point of life.
No, I actually really like the way you said stuff. And even like for me personally, honestly, the more I study science, the more I believe there's a God. Because when you look at stuff, like it can be random, you know, like you feel like there's a purpose behind it. Like even like your body, every single cell, everything functions like just so amazingly that there's a purpose behind it. It just cannot be random. And so actually, like for me, like every time, honestly, I'm studying science or like physics or biology, I'm like, there's definitely a God.
Yeah.
It even like makes it, because it cannot just be a coincidence. And I feel like people who do want to see it as coincidences and just random stuff, again, are escaping some realities. Like maybe not, but I feel like in a lot of the cases, if you think there's a purpose behind it, everything needs more analyzing, everything needs facing it more. And like, just like, for example, how you said, for example, if bad things are happening to you and you believe there's a God, probably the clearest conclusion would be, maybe I'm a bad person. Is that real? And it's so hard to face that. But even in those cases, honestly, one of the reasons, because I feel like, personally, I think a lot of Persians, or maybe like Middle Easterns, the younger generation, they should have an interesting relationship with religion. Because personally, for me, like when I was in school, and I used to live in a very small town in Iran, which was very religious, actually very different than Tehran. So like I remember it was to a big extent like Islam in particular. And I don't want to disrespect anyone. I think whatever you believe in, as long as you're not forcing it on others, or as long as you're not harming others, you're free to do that. I have nothing against it. But I remember I had this big conflict. Like this is one of the memories from my grade 2. So I would go to school, and then they would tell me, if you drink alcohol, you're a bad person. If you don't have hijab, you're a bad person.
You're going to go to hell.
You're going to go to hell. And then I would go home, and Saghar means a glass of wine. And the reason my dad loves wine, like since I remember, he used to make wine. And he was also this good person that would help everyone. Like he was like a doctor in a village close to my house. So then I would put everything together and be like, okay, he looks like a very good person, but he drinks wine.
Is he going to go to hell?
Exactly. Is he going to go to hell? Or then like I would look at my mom. She seemed like a good person to me, but she wouldn't wear hijab like when we had like our family gatherings. So like from a very young age, I started having these conflicts between what they told me God would do. So God would put you in hell if you drink wine, but then God would also reward you if you help others. And then I would see like somebody drinking wine, but also helping others. So what's the decision of God here? So like I always thought about this like in a deep way, like just like as a child. And then I remember when I was in 3rd grade, I said this sentence. I came to the conclusion that my religion is gonna be humanity, because it's the same between all of the humans.
Oh, that's so cute.
Because I kept thinking about it. I was like,
one love.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, people in America don't have hijab. Does that mean all the women there go to
hell?
Like, so
that's so funny.
Yeah, so then I was like, okay, humanity, it's the same between all of us. So then as I went by, because of the experiences that I had, and especially after losing my mom, I was like, I thought my dad is a good person, my mom was a good person, we're good people. And then I see a lot of bad people living, but then I see my mom, which we needed her a lot. God took my mom away from me. Does that mean so it either means I'm a bad person, or God is not just, like the way
it's not fair.
It's not fair, like the way that they talk about it. So I was like, I had a lot of conflicts in me. So I just started completely like avoiding this topic, and I came to the conclusion that maybe it doesn't exist, or I don't want to think about it anymore. But then as I grew older, I started realizing that even a lot of the bad experiences you go through, even if at the moment it seems bad, when you look at it as the big picture or in a long term, it was kind of necessary for you to grow. It was very, just like how you said, bad people are there to teach good people something.
It's all a part of the puzzle.
Exactly. It's all a part of the puzzle. And it doesn't matter. And even like, when you think about it, even good and bad, who define what's good, what's bad?
Okay, I want to tell you something. So I don't know how much you know about Jesus and his disciples.
Okay.
But Jesus had a disciple named Thomas. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Thomas was set to marry this girl that he really, really loved. I can't remember her name now. And she ended up getting killed by a Roman soldier. Okay? And Thomas went to Jesus and was like, I've seen you bring people back from the dead. I've seen you do miracles, cure blind people, and do this and do that. And how could you let this happen to me? Mm-hmm. Same thing with Simon, which is another one of his disciples. Him and his wife were trying to have a kid, and they really loved each other. It was like a very loving like union, and his wife had a miscarriage, and Simon said to Jesus, said like, how could you let this happen to my wife? I've seen you do like miracles for people and whatever. And it was two things that really stood out to me. One, that he replied to Simon was that it's in these moments that God strengthens your faith. You know what I mean? And I know that a lot of people who've been through painful things, and it's hard to accept because you're like, how could this be about faith? Like, this is not fair. How is this about faith? But realistically, faith is your connection to God. And sometimes if you look at it like these kind of hardships, they bring you closer to God because they make your faith stronger in God if you lean in. You know what I mean? And that's like any relationship. If you're going through a hardship with your partner, if you distance yourself, then the relationship falls apart. But if you lean in, you develop a better relationship with your partner. And in this case, God. Another part for Thomas, and I'm not saying this is something that everybody should like learn from, or even that there is anything to learn from. But for me, these things were very interesting. And another thing that he said to Thomas was that about like he brought back to life this guy that was like somehow like related to him or a far family member or whatever. And Thomas was mad at him because he said, how come you didn't bring back the girl that I loved? And he was like, it's not about what I'm doing. It's about when I'm doing it. It's about the timing. You know what I mean? And that might not mean anything to you now in regards to, let's say, for example, your mom, but you don't know. You don't know how that was related to other things. You don't know how that was related to your life. And the only way you will know, like hypothetically speaking, if you want to be optimistic, is by having faith.
No, that's exactly true. And I feel like probably one of the things I do like about myself is that I am an actually optimistic person. Like whatever happens to me, I always find something.
You are.
Thank you.
You are.
Like to be grateful for, like to kind of like acknowledge what has happened. So like with my mom, like I know like whenever I tell this to people and they feel sad for me, which is obviously sad, I don't wish it on anyone. It's not an easy thing to go through. But at the same time, I feel like I've become so independent, and like there's just like some parts of me that wouldn't be possible if my mom was here. There will also be a lot of good experiences that is not possible now that she's not here. But looking at the glass half full, it has made me a very strong person, and I feel like I've been ready to be a mom for a long time. So it's not I don't think it's gonna be like that hard for me to be a mom now. But like I really do believe in that, and I have this belief. I do have this feeling about people close to me too. Like for example, like Puri, I always take a pour shot like this. I feel like universe loves me and universe loves her too.
Oh, absolutely.
And whatever happens, even if it's sad at the time, even if I don't understand it, I always try to tell to this myself that I need to be patient and something good is going to come out of it, because I believe in this with my heart that if you're genuine, if you have good intentions, and if you just try your best, like try to grow, good things are coming your way. And again, maybe not at that time, maybe not the time you want, like the time needs to be right,
but when it's supposed to.
But it's gonna happen when it's supposed to. Sometimes I think about it and I'm like, what would happen if I win a lottery, a lot of money?
Me, I think about that too.
And honestly, my answer is no, because I feel like it's gonna ruin my like.
I feel you.
When it's supposed to happen,
does.
it needs to happen. But yeah, so like sometimes you just gotta appreciate this hardship. Like even though if it's hard at the time, the way you can look at it after you're done, it's like, okay, this too, I passed. I'm here. I survived. I'm successful, and just like something else to your experiences, to your skills, the skills you've made in life, and life can be hard. But whatever happens, like one thing that I always tell is that I actually love living life.
Me too.
I love
That's so
living
crazy.
life. Yeah.
It's always people who are so like such deep thinkers that are that have such like deep dark souls and that think about all the sad things in the world and whatever that appreciate life the most. And you know what? I will say as a final thing to add to this conversation about your mom, if you, in my opinion, I always think about this because I've lost people in my life too. If you don't think this way, even if there is no God, even if there is no plan or something to have faith in or a bigger picture or whatever, if you think about death as just being death as like, oh, it's just a shitty thing that happened to me, then your mom's life would be for in vain. You know what I mean? And like for me, I don't want to think that. I don't want to think that this beautiful person who meant so much to so many people was just taken for no reason. Even from a logical standpoint, I just don't want to believe that. You know what I mean? I don't want to think that this person that I loved lived their life in vain and that their life, there was no plan for them. You know what I mean? And I don't like to believe that. So for people who are scientific, like, or like want to think about things very factually, even when you think about things factually, it comes down to what is the most beneficial way of looking at something. If you don't know, because there's uncertainty in life. We don't know everything.
Exactly.
You know?
No, it's funny that actually you say that because a lot of the times I do have this feeling. I'm like, what if there's nothing? And then I'm like, what if there is something? And what makes you happier? Believing that there is something.
Yeah.
So it's my life. I'm the one who makes a decision. So I'm going to believe that way. And then I even go on. I'm like, what if the things that happen after is based on the things you were thinking here?
Oh, 100%.
See? So like if you
I think
feel
about that too. That's so funny that you say that.
So if there's nothing, so if you feel like there's nothing, then when you die, there's going to be nothing. So no, I believe
I'm not going to do that.
I'm not going to do that.
Listen, God, this is purely selfish. I just want to know that there is, you know, if there is a God, I just want you to know that I believe you. No, but I feel you.
Yeah.
And you know what? To put a good, very like good conclusion to this podcast, I really do hope that you align perfectly with your soul, whether that is you becoming a doctor or whatever, because I don't know. I really hope you do align with your soul because you have a very beautiful soul.
Thank you.
And that because you're such a deep person and that, like, I just think you are a very meaningful part of the puzzle. You know?
you.
And so for that reason, I really hope that things align for you the way that they're supposed to. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. This was by far one of the deepest podcasts I've ever had.
Really?
Because I always try to, like, talk about, like, obviously there's certain things that I'm curious about, but I also try to talk about certain things that I feel like the audience would want to know. But with you, I strictly was just like, I was like, I want to know. I don't really give a fuck if you guys also want to know. Feel free not to watch. I need to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I guess like I'm just a person like that. It's one thing that is very common with people that get so close to me is that they're able to have those deep conversations because I honestly crave it. Like
too.
it's like I crave it. Like I want it. Like,
I know. I get horny for deep thoughts.
I'm same. Same. And then I get horny for people who can have deep thoughts.
I feel you.
So yeah, so honestly it was it was a pleasure being here.
Absolutely.
I've seen your podcast on Instagram, obviously. It's so good to actually be here.
Yeah, of course. And guys, if you guys want to follow, why do I always, every episode, I have a moment where I get like my Persian accent seeps in. If you guys want to follow Sugar or Saghar, I'm going to put her Instagram right over here. You can't see it right now, but it will be there. And you guys can go ahead and follow her. Don't be creepy. And also do not distract her. She has to study. But if you guys want to follow her and just see how her life turns out, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time. And I love you guys. Bye.
Bye.